Welcome to the Stop Ruining My Childhood podcast.
A sometimes nostalgic, sometimes cynical look back at pop culture.
Join us as we revisit movies, cartoons, and live-action TV of the 80s and 90s and ask the question,
Hey, does this hold up, or did I just ruin my childhood?
Hey, I'm Megan.
And I'm Steve.
That's the second time we've done Hayes in there.
I'm mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah, we gotta keep it fresh, right?
That way listeners know it's not all pre-recorded.
That's true. Today, we are talking about the 1960s cartoon, actually, 1960s and 70s, Scooby-Doo.
Where Are You?
Yes. That's really important to get the second part in there because there were so many different versions of Scooby-Doo, and we'll talk about all those in our history and fun facts. But for now,
our favorite segment of the show, the non-sponsored snack segment.
yes, Sixlets.
Sixlets.
Which I think are really, they have kind of an interesting history. So why don't you try some and I'll talk about it for a minute.
So this first thing I'm going to notice before you even get into it is that this is not how I remember Sixlets coming.
No.
Sixlets, for what I can remember, were usually in like a little, they were in a line and packaged in cellophane, but in like a little, in a package that basically had them all lined up in like a little tube almost.
Yeah, and each little, in each color that they made was in a tube. So
and this is just like a cellophane bag basically with a bunch of them in it.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. We picked Sixlets because, like Scooby-Doo, they started in the 1960s. So Oakleaf Confections was a Canadian company, and they first sold these in 1960 for Leaf Brands. They also made another candy called Five-Sums, and Five-Sums were like small Whoppers. And so there were 5 in the package, the little kind of almost tube you're talking about. And then the Sixlets, there were 6 in the package.
Whoppers are like the caramel?
No, Whoppers are the, like the malt ball.
Oh, okay, like a Milk Dud.
No, a Milk Dud is the caramel.
Oh, I'm getting them mixed up.
Yeah.
That's okay, so when you first said mini Whoppers, I thought Burger King. And I was like, how the heck did they do little burgers?
I wondered why you gave me that face. No, Whoppers, like the malted milk can.
Okay,
yeah. So they basically were ripping off other candies. They were like, what if we made a smaller Whopper and a bigger M&M? And then the idea was that you would package them together. So it was like 6 candies for a penny. Or for 5 cents or whatever. And then
these aren't really bigger than M&Ms. They're like, but they're round instead of like disc shaped like an M&M.
Yeah. Well, these aren't, but I think the ones that came in that original long package were. So there would be 6 in a little package. And the Five-Sums, there were 5. But they were a little bit bigger. Initially, they made these to try to sell them in gumball machines. They were going to make a bigger version and have it be almost like the Jawbreaker.
Yeah.
But then they decided to put them in the little package. So these were red, brown, yellow, green, blue, and orange in the beginning. And I think those are the same colors we've got here. They do a pink and white version for Easter, a red and green or for Christmas. And a teal, purple, green, and black for Halloween. So, yeah, we found these at a kind of a little shop that had some, like,
nostalgic candies kind of things.
And other stuff, too. Yeah, that was kind of nostalgic. All right, I'm going in. Okay. What are your impressions?
You know, they're pretty good. Obviously, they're like a little chocolate with a candy coating, very much, as you said, like M&Ms. But the chocolate seems a little bit more bitter to me than M&M chocolate.
Yeah.
Or Hershey's chocolate.
This is
right?
weird.
Is that the taste? Does it feel bitter to you?
I think, okay. Sorry. I think what I'm getting, I could be wrong. The candy coating has a tiny bit of fruit flavoring in it. Do you see any fruit flavoring in there?
No, but you know what you could be tasting is yellow dye number 5 and 6.
No.
Red dye number 3 and 40. Blue dye number 1.
The Blue Lake.
And blue dye number 2. So it could be a lot of those things.
It's some kind of a preservative or a citric acid or something. And then the
tapioca?
Maybe tapioca? I don't know. the way that the tapioca is processed. It could sometimes chocolate has some like fruity notes to it, but I think it's the candy coating, and then the chocolate is cheap chocolate. It's very waxy, and there's like a coating of wax on my tongue. These are not good.
Canuba wax in it.
Oh, that's there. There you go.
There you go. So you got the wax hint right
I
away.
definitely got the hints of wax. Yeah, these are not M&Ms.
No. I have memories of these. Like I said, I remember them in the little, like, 6 at a time in a little tube.
Yeah.
They weren't big. They were actually, if I remember right, they were littler. They were like little dots.
Oh, okay.
Little pellets almost, or BB kind of things that were different colors, and they were chocolate. And I remember getting them, I don't know if I got them like during Halloween or where I would have picked these up, because it's not something I would have necessarily just purchased. They might have been like in those, you know how sometimes your convenience stores when you were growing up had like the little nickel bins?
Yeah.
They might have been in there maybe, but I recall having them occasionally.
So, I don't want you to make fun of me for this. My mom had a membership to a racquetball club. Because it was the 80s.
Right.
So there was a racquetball club just down the hill from where we lived. And, and my mom had a membership there. And they had a track as well. And I think some gym equipment. So it was kind of like a gym, but mostly it was for racquetball, which I love. I wish there was a racquetball club here. Anyway. So there was a daycare where you drop the kids off while you play racquetball for an hour.
Right.
And they always had the cheapest snacks in there. So my memories are like being in this kind of daycare type thing. And I'm bored and like coloring or reading a book and watching my mom kind of be on the track or go with her like little racquetball outfit to go play racquetball. And they'd give us Sixlets, which I did not care for. And now I remember why. And the other thing that they gave us, which I did love, were the cheese crackers with the peanut butter in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, the ones that came in little packs.
Yeah. So you have to know that I was like 3 when this happened. Okay. And you know how kids start, like, they'll eat weird stuff.
Yeah.
So I started asking my mom to make me peanut butter and cheese sandwiches. And I full on ate because of those crackers.
Because the cheese peanut butter crackers?
And I ate peanut butter and cheese sandwiches for probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. Maybe until I was in about 2nd grade.
Were those Keebler?
They were not at the racquetball club.
The racquetball club was not the Keebler version, no.
I think they had the Keebler version. No, they had these, like, and Sixlets, too. It was like a cheap, like, little, what they had them in was like a little vending machine.
Right.
So they'd give you like a little snack. So that's where
you would think they would. The racquetball club like hits me as kind of swanky, like a yacht club or a country. You'd think they'd have the good Keebler
That's why I
packers.
thought you were going to make fun of me because you were going to be like, it's so waspy.
I was really holding back.
But this wasn't like a swanky place. It was like a gym that happened to have some racquetball courts. I feel like that's
put all their money into the racquetball courts and they didn't care about the little kids in daycare.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been swanky like in the 60s or 70s when it first opened.
Oh, okay.
But by the time it closed when I was probably in like 4th grade, so not that long after that.
So that's where you had Sixlets.
Yeah, that's where I had Sixlets. So, 1 out of 5 for the snack, 1 out of 10 for the show. And we are rating on Scooby Snacks today.
Okay, so what are you going to rate it?
Oh, this is a solid 1. I would never eat these again.
Really? A 1?
It is a 1. This is the grossest chocolate. I don't know where the fruit flavor is coming from. I don't want a wax coating on my tongue. No, this is candy cigarette territory.
I don't know if it's that harsh. I mean,
I don't like it.
Or candy cigarette. Candy cigarettes are awesome. I don't know what your problem is, but to me, one is very terrible. Like one is, to me, one is circus peanuts.
Yeah.
Okay? Something that you would not feed your worst enemy because they will vomit.
I mean, if you want to eat these, go ahead.
Sixlets and circus peanuts are not even close to being in the same category.
Listen, we have leftover candy from we're on episode 36 right now. We have leftover candy from episode 5. Okay. I would rather eat that than whatever is in that bag. I can't take it. I'm giving it a 1. What are you giving it?
I'm giving it a 3. Okay. I would say it's an average candy.
You give gummy worms a 3. This tastes like garbage.
Yeah.
No, gummy worms were like, they were okay.
Because those gummy worms were like, eh.
I know.
These are the same. Like, they're not bad. They're a chocolate candy-coated snack, but they're not fantastic.
Okay. So, two Scooby snacks out of 5.
Out of 5, yeah.
2 out of 5 Scooby snacks for Sixlets. Pick them up wherever weird vintage candies are sold. Okay, so kind of disappointing, but let's get into the show. So, Scooby-Doo Where Are You is it's in a couple different places. We watched it for free on Tubi. And you can also not Tubi and see it if you have the Boomerang Network, which a lot of people do if they have little kids. The Boomerang Network is available through Prime as like a station on Prime. So you can watch it there too. So, Steve, can you give us a summary for people who have maybe never seen any iteration of Scooby-Doo?
Yeah, so let's start off. First off, I want to mention, you know, we did, as Megan kind of mentioned very early when she introduced it, we are talking about Scooby-Doo, which started, Scooby-Doo Where Are You, the first iteration we're discussing specifically, started in 1967. So I know some of you out there going, wait a second, this is a show all about the 80s and 90s. Yeah, we understand that, but we chose Scooby-Doo because there were later iterations, but also, in my recollection, this version was on all the time in the 80s.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because the animation, I feel like until recently, they really didn't change too much.
Yeah.
So
it was something that definitely, to me, screams 80s of Scooby-Doo. So Scooby-Doo, as a quick summary, is about 4 teenagers, Fred, Shaggy, Velma, and Daphne, and their talking dog Scooby-Doo, who travel around and basically come across mysteries. Very much Murder, She Wrote like.
Yeah.
Where they just happen to be in an area where they stumble across a mystery, and there's usually some kind of a ghost or monster involved, and then at the end of almost every episode, it's revealed to be a person who was utilizing some kind of a legend or myth to try to, you know, break the law or steal money or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good... Or do murders. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. That's a good explanation. It is... very, I say interesting too much on this show, but it's interesting to me how this started because we've talked a lot about how shows like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and G.I. Joe and even He-Man, right? That they had more violence in them. Right. In the 80s because the rules changed for what could be shown on TV. Yeah. Right? Well, so this basically came out of the opposite end of that. So in the 1960s, there were a lot, on Saturday morning, there were a lot of shows for kids that had quite a bit of violence. And there were things like action shows and superhero shows like Superman and the Herculoids. Yeah. Things like that. And so people were kind of asking for shows that had less violence in them for kids. So basically, the group with Hanna-Barbera, they put out the Archie show. Okay. Based on the Archie comics. And it was kind of based on the Archie comics. So it was like a group of kids who were all in a band together, and it was like antics. Right. Right. And that's how we got the wonderful Sugar Sugar song. So then they decided to pitch this show that originally they called The Mysteries 5. And it was going to have 5 teens and their dog, who were all in a band. Yeah. And the dog played bongos, which I think is kind of hilarious. And then it was supposed to be like, when the teenagers weren't out performing gigs, that they would be solving spooky mysteries that were going to be actual ghosts, though, like ghosts and zombies and monsters and stuff. And the networks were basically like, no. They liked kind of part of the idea, but they really didn't want it to be too scary for kids. So the first version was kind of scrapped. And instead, Barbera wanted to do kind of a similar thing, but make the dog a Great Dane. They thought at first it would be too much like Marmaduke.
Okay.
So the artist Iwao Takamoto consulted somebody who was a breeder of Great Danes, and then took a lot of time to like have it be like the legs were like bowed out, and it had like a double chin and a sloped back, so little abnormalities that could be in Great Danes, but when you put them all together, it's like a caricature.
Right.
Make the dog funnier. And then they were basically influenced by two different things. And the first was Abbott and Costello. Have you ever seen those?
Yes.
Like the Meets Frankenstein?
Yep, the mystery version. Yep.
Yeah, so Abbott and Costello started on the radio, but then they had these kind of funny, like comedy horror kind of movies. Mm-hmm. Like Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, and Abbott and Costello meet the Mummy, and like those kind of things. And then they were also influenced, and I thought that this was the weirdest thing, because I know this show, but most people don't. They were inspired by the loves of Dobie Gillis.
Okay.
So you've seen me watching that before, right? It's that black and white. Dobie Gillis is a black and white show. Mm-hmm. And it has, it stars before he was on Gilligan's Island.
Bob Denver.
Yes. Yeah. And he who we also saw in Fantasy Island.
I could see where they pull Shaggy from him.
Yeah. Maynard G. Krebs is like the first beatnik on TV.
Right.
And so Shaggy's inspired by him, and then Dobie Gillis is like the clean-cut all-American, and that's where, like, when you look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, Fred definitely resembles that actor. And then they had Zelda and Talia, and that's where they got Velma and Daphne. Okay. So it's just interesting because it's such a random show. I think it was only on in the 50s for like maybe one season. And it had kind of maybe a comic book that went along with it. But
well,
yeah.
It obviously influenced the people at Hanna-Barbera. I know that they...
Yeah, the people who were doing the writing. So, again, they tried to do, like, more of a, a scary kind of thing. And then they decided to make it more comical. And this is one of my favorite comments. Somebody commented on one of the articles I wrote. They were like, that's why Scooby-Doo's a good show, because it teaches kids that ghosts aren't real. And I'm like, is that what it teaches kids? I don't think this show teaches really anything.
I would think that the lesson is really the monsters are among us. No.
I know, right? But the parental groups were not as upset about this, I guess, and so the FCC didn't ban it because it didn't have like wall-to-wall monsters, right? Anything like that.
There's no real violence at all in it.
No, yeah, not really. It is really supposed to be quite funny.
There's some slapsticky stuff between Shaggy and Scooby, but there's no, if you think about it, the episodes we watched, the villains are never really like hitting the good guys or vice versa. There's a lot of chasing, right, but not actually catching, really.
Right. Fred Silverman was the network executive who helped create this, and he also oversaw All in the Family, MASH, and Roots. Like, those would not have been aired if it were not for him. But he also oversaw, like, a bunch of stuff that didn't go well. Okay. Like the Brady Bunch Hour, Thick of the Night, Pink Lady and Jeff. Like things like
we've
that.
Never heard of.
Things
now,
that you may have never, things that you may never have heard of. So total with Scooby-Doo Where Are You? That was the original, and we did watch the pilot, which we're going to talk about when we come back. But there were 15 comics, 45 films. Now a lot of those were like direct to video. Yep. But some of them, like the one in 2002, the big live action, like, it was a major movie.
Right, with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar,
and there's another one with Mindy Kaling. I don't know. It might be in development. Yeah, she plays Velma, and I'm not sure who else is in it.
Oh no, the one I liked, which I was thinking of, Velma was played by the girl from Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah. Forget her name.
Yeah.
And Sarah Michelle Gellar played Daphne.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And
Freddie Prinze Jr.
And the guy from Scream played Shaggy.
Yep, Matthew Lillard.
So there were 46 short films, 13 television series, a web series, and then it says 14 animated series, but I think it's counting the TV and the web series in with that. 6 television specials, 6 TV films, and there's so many. And we talked about, in the 80s, and we're going to watch this separately at some point, some of the TV series that came about later. Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, which I thought came out. I thought Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo was like when we were like 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. No, 79 to 80.
Yeah, because it was already out. I think all the stuff that I was seeing
and then it was just reruns and syndication. Yes. Yeah. And then they had another Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo 80 to 82. The new Scooby and Scrappy-Doo 83 to 84. A pup named Scooby-Doo, which I did think. I remember that one too. That was 88 to 91. And then they have a big gap. And then they restart everything up in 2002. But I think in between there, they were doing all the direct-to-video kind of things in the 90s. Because that was when that was really kind of a big deal. I think the pup named Scooby-Doo or the new Scooby and Scrappy show, one of those, they had like a short thing at the beginning, like 15 minutes. And then they would have like another thing for 15 minutes.
Probably the pup named Scooby-Doo, because a lot of the stuff like the newer Muppet Babies thing we saw, we're starting to do the 15 and 15, remember?
Yeah, and like Garfield and Friends was the same way. And even if you remember the new Flintstones or the Flintstone Babies, and then they would have like Captain Caveman.
I wonder,
or they would have like rotating.
They were shooting at a young audience that they didn't think had the attention span?
I think so.
So they're just really quick stories?
Yeah, and I think that they were like, there was a big thing, I don't know if you remember this, about Sesame Street and Sesame Street affecting kids' attention spans. Mm-hmm. Because everything on Sesame Street is like 2 to 3 minutes, like segments, right? And then even now are done that way. Like later shows like Fairly Odd Parents would have an A story and then a B story. 15 minutes and 15 minutes as opposed to one longer half hour. Yep. Yeah, which is kind of interesting.
That's interesting.
Alvin and the Chipmunks we watched was done that way too, right?
It was,
They had 2 stories? Yep. Yeah. So
really kind of interesting. Not as interesting, though, as Linda Cardellini. Who's the person who played Velma? We call that a callback, because I just remember. I only
remember, like, that girl who went out with dated Jason Segel.
Yes.
And when they broke up, he made Forgetting Sarah Marshall, like, based on their breakup. Okay, so we're gonna take a break here. And when we come back, we will talk about our memories. And then we'll get into our full review. This podcast is supported by its creators.
And listeners like you.
Help keep our show ad-free by visiting our website, stopruiningmychildhood.com.
There you can find links to our social media.
And this very podcast you're currently listening to.
Both Megan and I are authors, and you can find links to our books on our About page.
And on our Watch With Us page, you can find videos and links for all the shows and movies we discuss on the podcast.
And more importantly, links to buy the nostalgic snacks we review as well.
We also post bonus content about once a month.
So like, subscribe, and follow.
For a small independent podcast like ours, it really does make a difference. Thanks. All right, everybody, we're back. My name is Megan.
I'm Steve.
And we are going to be talking about Scooby-Doo Where Are You? So...
Memories. All alone in the moonlight.
Nice.
I sang you a song.
I liked that. That was very romantic on the podcast. So I'll go first.
Okay.
And then you could go. I hated this show as a kid.
What?
I'm so sorry.
Absolutely. I need something to throw.
I'm going to probably have a couple arch nemesis after this episode.
Rightfully so. I might be one of them.
Here's why. Here's why. I really loved reading books and I love storytelling. And it drove me banana. We used to watch this at my daycare. This would be on, and then also another show that I hate, Inspector Gadget, and I hate it for the same reason. So they would watch this, and I'd be like, I have to, like, go in a different room. And sometimes you can't because it's, like, winter, so you can't, like, go anywhere. So we would be in the basement of the daycare. It was, like, a finished basement. Mm-hmm. That's where all the kids would be. And I don't like shows that have the same plot every week. I don't like it. I don't like it now, and I really didn't like it back then. And I just felt like it was stupid. I felt like you never
were a child.
It's never a ghost.
Why were you so pretentious as a child?
I wasn't pretentious. I just believe in good writing. And and if you're a reader and you're
ridiculous thing I've heard in my life.
I feel like if you're a reader and you're used to good storytelling, then you have to sit in front of this nonsense, and you're like, oh, I just didn't like it. I didn't like it. That's it. I just felt like it was torture. A half hour of torture. I remember liking A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. I don't know why. Better, because my brother liked it, and I would, like, put up with it. But, the formula. It's the formula. Mm. Having said that, I noticed things watching it as an adult that probably because it annoyed me as a kid, I wasn't paying attention to. Mm-hmm. And I think I have a better appreciation for it now, if that helps. Okay. But it annoyed me too that it was never a real I also think, because I read, like you did, like sci-fi stuff, even like little, I would read that kind of thing. Like, just, there's never a ghost. So why are you going, Zoinkies, it's a ghost! There's not a ghost! You've been through this 78 million times. It's never a ghost. It's always the creepy janitor or whatever.
First off, get Shaggy's name out of your mouth with your disrespectful...
I didn't say Shaggy's.
But you did the Zoinkies.
I did.
First off, the problem is this. I think you and I watched it at different times. Because I was very little watching this.
Okay.
I wasn't like, sitting in the booth theater critic watching Scooby-Doo. I was watching it when I was like 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old.
I'm thinking the daycare, so I would have... Tim would have been there too. I was probably 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe like 8, 9
yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe too old for it? I don't know.
I don't know about that. But still. So... I recall, my memories are, especially before school, but even when I started school and then would get home, when I was very young, I was babysat by my grandfather, who was retired already. And he couldn't do a whole lot because he was older to begin with, but he had emphysema. He had actually worked in a tire factory.
Okay.
And breathing fumes and stuff he may have already had emphysema, but it made it worse. And so he couldn't really, it's not like we went out and did jogging or went to the park or anything.
Yeah.
And he used to like to hang out and do crossword puzzles and things like that. The word searches where you circle them, which was cool anyway. Besides that, though, there was cartoons that he knew I liked, and he'd put on for me. And I remember Scooby-Doo being it, and I'm pretty sure it was this original Where Are You, Scooby-Doo? Because the intro, the song, everything I recall very vividly, right? And I just thought it was kind of neat. I liked the fact that they're chasing, it's silly, Shaggy and Scooby are kind of silly, but there actually is a mystery to it, and... granted, they're always going to unmask the person, but you never knew. Not to mention, as a little kid, it was more the monsters were kind of interesting. Oh. Like, they're all drawn differently. Like, one time, like, in the episodes we saw, there's a knight, there's a hide, right? There's all these different things. Fake ghosts, and how did they do it, right? Things like that. I liked Scooby-Doo. I think my favorite was, I was never a big Shaggy fan. I will defend him from your nonsense, but I was not a huge Shaggy fan. I really liked Fred, and Scooby, and maybe Daphne. I wasn't a big Velma fan either, only because I had gotten glasses very young, like 5 years old.
Right.
And I was like, how can she drop her glasses every episode? I was taught to like make sure you don't drop these because they're expensive.
Right.
But yeah, so I do. It brings back memories of watching Scooby-Doo, but also good memories of my grandfather who passed away when I was like 9 or 10.
Did you see the live action movie? Because I have not.
With Sarah Michelle Gellar?
Yeah.
Oh, of course I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
You know, as we'll talk about in October when we get to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I had a huge crush on Sarah Michelle Gellar. So anything, you know, she could have been in a potato sack and I would have watched it for 2 hours.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to see the 2 live actions with that group. They did 2 of them.
They did 2 of them, yeah.
And I think it was just the timing was right. I was like, I think my last year of college, something like that. So I just didn't, it was just a timing issue. Okay. And then I just never saw them. Okay. So one of us enjoyed it as a kid and one did not.
It's always a party pooper.
Let's see what we thought about it as adults. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot. What a night for a night. Now, I do like the pun.
You do like wordplay.
It's a night with an N and then for a night with a K.
Right.
Yeah. So, let's talk about the theme song right off the bat.
Right off the bat. Loved it.
Different from what I remember, though.
Yep.
I'm wondering if I only, I remember the 80s
iconic,
version.
First off, iconic entry.
Yeah.
Old ghosty house with bats flying at you.
Yes.
And then Scooby-Dooby-Doo. I mean, classic.
It really is of its time. It sounded like the Partridge Family, the Monkees. It is like after the Beatles, but before disco. Mm-hmm. So there is like a particular sound.
It's that late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, I really liked it. And I forgot, we didn't mention that Casey Kasem is the voice of Shaggy. I forgot to mention that before. Casey Kasem was an American DJ who looked pretty much almost the same until he passed away in 2014. But he was really known for doing American Top 40.
Yeah. Casey's Countdown.
Yeah, Casey Kasem and the American Top 40. And now, I think, does Ryan Seacrest still do that?
I don't know. I remember, because I stopped paying attention to it, but I remember a long time in my teen years and even early 20s, you could still hear it on the radio. Like on the weekend. It was either Saturday or Sunday, they would have it on.
He voiced Shaggy from 1969 until 1997.
Wow.
And then again from 2002 to 2009.
So he really was into that character.
Yeah. I mean, he had a very unique voice for it as well.
That's true.
And I do think, I haven't seen the movie, I've seen clips though. I think Matthew Lillard kind of captures that pretty well in his version. But yeah, I put, I forgot it's Casey Kasem.
Right.
Because his voice is so distinctive. The dog, Scooby-Doo, I didn't remember him. I don't know. I remembered either him not talking at all or talking, and it's kind of like in between.
Yeah, he never talked he was always like partial talking, like the best a dog would be able to do, maybe.
Oh.
Okay.
He's like, let's go?
Yeah. Were you expecting him to be like, excuse me, Shaggy, I think I found a clue.
No, I just don't, I didn't remember, I don't know, when he started talking, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, he doesn't fully talk like a Disney cartoon would do, or even the other Hanna-Barbera. But then I feel like, when they did the one with Scrappy-Doo is a talker.
Yeah, I hated Scrappy-Doo.
Well, a lot of people do. But
oh yeah, Megan, Scooby-Doo's a dog. He doesn't have human vocal cords. He's doing the best he can.
I'm not giving him a hard time. I'm just saying I think it's interesting that Scrappy is like, hey guys, let's go. We gotta go get him. Yeah. And Scooby-Doo's like, snack times?
Well, Scooby-Doo was a dog doing his best. Scrappy-Doo was a demon from hell.
Stop it.
And they can look or sound like anything they want.
There's also a laugh track, like a sitcom.
I mentioned that. That's the first thing I wrote down in my notes. I put the laugh track on cartoons, LOL, and I put that's hilarious to me.
It's hilarious, and also, especially, I didn't notice this as much in the second episode we watched, which was in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
But this first episode with the pilot, and this is very typical of other 60s and 70s shows as well, they'll have a laugh track. There's nothing funny going on. Like, they're like, yeah, let's go get pizza. And they'll have tracks like, oh, yeah. But there's nothing funny in that. Which just made me laugh also. I also had a note, does the girl's voice change? Because the girls sounded different. And yes, indeed, we have a different Daphne after this.
Between season 1 and season 2?
Yeah, between season 1 and season 2, we have a different Daphne. So, an overview of the episode we forgot to do because we've been chatting.
Yeah, so...
A night for a night.
It starts off with a archaeologist or a professor. His name is actually, I wrote it down, Professor Hydewhite.
Yeah.
Is transporting from London. He's transporting a suit of armor, the Black Knight, to the county museum. Now, it never tells us what county it's in.
Right.
But the county museum. And as he's driving down the road, you see in the back of his pickup truck the crate open, and you see the knight kind of coming to life.
Yes.
And kind of stands up and starts to, like, you know, scarily lean towards the front of the truck, and then it doesn't show anymore.
Right. So the basic overview is that's how it starts. Basically, the professor who's driving the truck disappears.
Yep.
They try to find the professor. They think that the ghost of the night might have taken him. They have some hijinks in the museum where they're running around and being chased and all that.
Yep.
And then they catch the knight, and then the knight is unmasked or dehooded?
Yeah, unmasked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do piece by piece. The first beginning part, this is the first thing that struck me in the beginning piece. So that's kind of like setting up the problem, right? They see the Shaggy and Scooby are coming back from a movie?
Yeah. And walking through the woods.
At night.
Yeah.
And a frog scares them.
Yes, a frog scares them.
And then they come upon this mystery. They go and grab the rest of the gang. And we see for the first time the mystery van.
Yes.
Now, here's my question. Are they living in the mystery?
Well, this is an interesting thing. I had always wondered as a kid why the hell they have this van, right? They just painted their own van, or they bought one that said mystery van on it, and they tend to trip upon mysteries. But now that you're saying that originally they were going to make them a band, that makes more sense.
That does make more sense.
That maybe they were like the mystery band,
right?
You know, we know one of the original names was it the Mystery 5?
Yeah, something like
but
that. Yeah.
Then they ended up. I mean, I don't recall ever seeing the Scooby-Doo group play as a band. But I wonder if that was easy to cut out, but the van wasn't because they're driving in it all the time.
I do remember. Now I was going to say I do remember. Now I'm thinking, no, I remember the Archies because it's drawn very similar.
And the Pussycats.
Yeah. So what happens is that they run over. Fred, Velma, and Daphne are all there, and Fred goes, "Looks like we've got another mystery on our hands, gang." And he slams shut the door of the van, and it says the mystery.
It says the mystery van. Yeah, the mystery machine.
And I'm like, and this is so typical of cartoons, but a lot of times you do get the lore, right?
Here, I was expecting the pilot to maybe be like a
Getting the gang together.
Yeah, getting the gang together, like an origin story. But they just start off like, we do mysteries.
Yeah, they're in medias res. They're in the middle of things, and it's just right off the bat, we do mysteries. This is what we do. Go with it. Yeah. And people are like, oh, all right. I really was hoping from that as well. And I wasn't sure for a while if we even saw the pilot, because they don't explain anything. I also forgot that Shaggy says things like, wow, man, the moon was so full last night. I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Okay.
It's a very distinct character. I don't get as distinct of a character, Daphne especially. So Fred is like the leader of the group,
Yep.
right? Shaggy and Scooby are best friends, and they're kind of like the instigators of a lot of the stuff.
Right.
Velma is kind of like the brainy, like she does research in libraries and drops her glasses.
Yep.
And then I was like, I don't get what does Daphne actually do? But then when you look closer, a lot of the times she's the one who sees the clues.
Right. Daphne's also, she's the hot one.
I'm aware of that, but what's her function?
To be hot.
No, this is like in Galaxy Quest
yeah.
where you have the hot girl just repeating what the computer
No,
said.
she does find clues sometimes. And she also, I mean, there's also like the underlying thing of like her and Fred, will they, won't they? Right.
Yeah, a lot of people think Fred's gay.
No, not at all. That's ridiculous.
A lot of people think
a lot
Fred's
of people
gay.
are wrong, and they're trying to, like, you know, project some of their own feelings, I think.
No, a lot of people think that both Fred, like that Fred is supposed to be gay and that Velma is supposed to be gay.
No.
And the creators are like, no, they're based on Dobie Gillis.
Yeah,
and
they're
it's
not.
he
And
has
it's
an
obvious that
ascot.
Fred is into Daphne. He's always like, okay, Daphne and I'll go this way, and
That's true.
the three of you go that way, or, you know, Shag and Scoob, you go check the basement, and Velma, screw off. I don't care where you go.
No, let's just say this. Just because a man likes a nice white sweater and an ascot does not mean that he's gay.
Especially
But he
not
could
when
be.
it was drawn in the times and it was supposed to be like a preppy kind of thing.
I know. I'm just saying.
It's
That's
making me angry.
That's a huge fan theory. I can't not
Yeah.
mention. Okay, so then we have the second part where now they've met the person who runs the
They
museum.
met Mr. Wiggles, who is the curator of the museum. And he has an important role when they first meet him because he explains the legend of the Black Knight.
Yeah.
Which is that this you know, Black Knight suit of armor that they delivered to the museum because it was still in the truck even though the professor was gone.
Yep.
It supposedly comes to life during a full moon.
Yes. But they also have random afraid noises, I noticed. So that's when Shaggy goes, like the moon was so full. But then they go, yes, it was delivered from England. And then Scooby goes, Dork? Like, but
England's not scary.
there's nothing scary about it being delivered from England. If he was like, it was delivered from England and 8 people died in the transport. Right. Then we find some clues. There's spectacles.
Well, but even before that, I want to point out something that I wrote down that I found was interesting.
Oh, what did you find interesting?
Just from plot line and things like that, right? After they hear this, they go to the library to do research.
Yes.
And I thought that was neat and interesting. It's not like they just stumbled around till they found stuff. They went and did research like on the armor and stuff at the library, which was really interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. So there is something to be learned, kids. But Velma's the one reading the book and telling
she
them
has
about
the glasses.
it. Right? But she's, again, and then Fred kind of makes the plan.
Yep.
What are we going to do next? So then we have this, then we have the hijinks at the museum. So this kind of brings us into kind of the second act.
They do, as you mentioned, they go back to the museum at night.
There are 2 things here.
The first thing is how they get into the museum.
That's the whole, yeah, because Fred goes, all right, Shaggy, you're gonna go up the ladder. Why is Shaggy going up the ladder? 'Cause he's the thinnest. Forget you, Daphne.
But, well, then Daphne follows up with, Shaggy's a great gymnast.
Yeah.
He's the best gymnast at our high school.
I actually
What?
wrote down the actual words she said. The ladder wobbles, and they're like, I don't know if it's tall enough for him to make it in the top window. And she goes, Shaggy's the swingingest gymnast in school.
Yeah, I wrote down with 5 question marks and drew boxes around it. Shaggy's a gymnast? I've never been aware of this.
But also, the swingingest gymnast.
And they set this down right in the first episode.
Yes. And I don't think they ever bring it up, probably.
Well,
again.
this is the problem. They should have, because we all look at Shaggy and go, oh, he's a slacker.
Yeah,
and
how
really
come
all
he's
he
with
does
the
is watch Scooby-Doo. But he's got this distinct skill set he brings to the group.
Yeah.
He's a gymnast. Later on, we see he's a ventriloquist.
Yes. Is he the only one who can hear Scooby talking?
No, I think they all can.
Oh, okay. I didn't know because maybe the pot. So he swings up and does like a flip into the window. The other thing is, you don't need to do any of this because you're working with Professor Wiggles, who runs the museum and is the curator and wants your help.
Trust no one, Megan.
I guess not.
It's the first lesson we learned from Scooby-Doo.
From Scooby-Doo. So anyway, they tap out a few things. The eyes of the mask follow him. Scooby agrees to stand on guard for 2 snacks. Now at this point, I pause the thing and Steve goes, "That's our dog."
Yeah.
She is also a cowardly dog, like Scooby-Doo, but she would try to be braver if snacks were involved.
You know, it's also cool because I will say, when you're talking about our dog, we have a coonhound, Lucy, and she's about 80 pounds, so she's not as big as Scooby, but she's a rather large dog.
She lost a little weight recently.
I know, I'm not shaming her.
You're like, but she's a fatty.
She's kind of a bigger dog.
Yeah, she's a big dog.
And as I watch this, I'm going, it is still early animation, but as much as they kind of did a caricature of a Great Dane with Scooby, a lot of his leg work and how he walks is very accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate to how our dog moves.
Yeah, it was like anatomically for a dog, the animator did a good job here.
It's interesting because you're right. So I want to say, as we're doing the hijinks, they have things like their legs move in circles before they actually run, right? They reuse some clips where they loop it while they're running from room to room. Having said that, the animation was better than a lot of the other Hanna-Barbera stuff that I've seen. Captain Caveman is very sketchy. Yogi Bear is very, like, angular and kind of cheap looking. Yep. The Flintstones is a whole other kettle of fish.
This was also 69, and as we mentioned in our first episode, in the 80s, He-Man was doing a lot of looping.
Yeah, they were.
When there was running and things like that.
Yeah, they were, because it cost so much to do the animation, and they're doing cells still at this point. It's not, like, computerized, obviously. All right, my favorite part. First, that classic Velma loses her glasses, and by doing so, she's hunting around for them, and the knight trips over her.
Yeah. And into the stocks.
Right. But my favorite part is that this is a museum of many things. There's a dinosaur there. Scooby, in the midst of all this, sees the dinosaur bone and is like, "That's a big bone!" And runs for the dinosaur leg. Oh,
That's
loved
legit.
It.
Like, I think our dog would do the same
thing.
Yeah.
Our dog has grabbed a bone that was wider than a door frame and then slammed into the door frame, not being able to get it out of the room. They have a secret room. Then they find more clues. A secret room with copied paintings. There's a gag where Scooby dresses as a painter in, like, artist clothes with, like, a beret and a smock and all that. And then they hide in a bearskin rug. Yes. This part took a really long time. Like the hijinks running around.
Chase scene.
This is why I never this is one of the reasons I don't like this show. You know how I feel about a chase scene. And I was legitimately almost falling asleep because it was a long chase scene with not too much really. I mean, it's all funny little gags here and there.
It's little gags and things. But I did like that they did pick up clues.
Yeah, they did as they went.
I didn't remember that as much from being really little. I remembered there being running and hijinks. But I was watching this week when we watched it. I was like, all right, they're really legitimately putting clues in that did make sense to the end result.
Yeah, it did. And that's actually, so that when I said that I appreciated some things about it more as an adult, I didn't like this show, so I really did not pay attention to it. And, that was one thing that I noticed that I didn't realize. That it is a lot like, they do this, like you mentioned Murder, She Wrote, which I kind of do like. I didn't as a kid, but I kind of do like now. They are trying to, like, they have the fact that it's from England. There are spectacles that they find. They find, like, somebody's shoe. They find, like, different clues like that. And if you are paying attention, you can put them together and realize who it is that's under the mask. So it really... When I saw it as a kid, I really thought it was people pretending that there were ghosts and that it was never ghosts and they were surprised it was never ghosts. But the real thing isn't, is it a ghost or not? The real thing is who's doing the misdeeds, right? Who's behind the crimes.
Right.
And the answer is...
The answer was Mr. Wiggles, the curator.
Yes. Professor Hydewhite was the eyes in the mask that followed Shaggy because he was tied up.
Yeah, he was tied and gagged and then set up to look like an exhibit.
Because he would have known the real paintings from the fake paintings.
Right.
And Mr. Wiggles was... I can't say that without laughing. Mr. Wiggles was an art forger. Which also, this was the other thing that made me laugh. This is a pretty sophisticated idea for a children's show. That you have an art forgery plot, and the whole thing rests upon him trying to recreate Rembrandt paintings.
Yeah. It's actually pretty smart.
Just
I mean,
funny.
in the 60s, that a guy gets a job as a curator, and at night, when no one's there, he's painting copies and replacing them and taking the ones that are valuable.
Yeah. And that you would then have a professor of art who would know the difference between the real and the fake. We have more tests for that now, but art forgery is a huge...
Millions and millions of dollars.
I just think that's hilarious.
So yeah, they find the professor, they pull up, and it's funny because Scooby-Doo actually finds the professor.
Yes.
He grabbed his shoe off of his foot and realized it was not a dummy.
Right.
But they find the professor, and the one last thing that I was left with is, I said, all right, so they've saved the day. They've found the professor. They've stopped this forgery ring. Mm-hmm. Okay, they've solved the mystery. How many of thousands of dollars were done in damage in the museum during their chase and hijinks?
Well, when he pulled the bone out of the dinosaur, it all fell apart, but then it fell back together in the right shape.
He put it back, yeah.
Yeah.
Scooby fixed it.
Yeah, he fixed it. So, probably not too much.
But there's a lot of other things that got ran into and knocked down.
Like vases and Velma's glasses and all those kind of things. So that was episode 1. Then we watched season 2, episode 1, Nowhere to Hide. So here, the basic plot is there is a supposed ghost of Hyde. They're calling it the Ghost of Hyde. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning, it steals some jewelry. And while the gang is at a malt shop, Hyde jumps into the back of their van. Now they're pulled into the mystery.
Right.
So they go to an old spooky house and they meet Dr. Jekyll, because of course they do.
Who's the ancestor of the original Dr. Jekyll.
Yes. And he tells them that he's afraid he might be the ghost of Hyde because that's what happened to his ancestor. Again, hijinks ensue. Here, they had a lot more clues.
They did.
We'll talk about. And they also have a maid at this house, and eventually they have a little hijinks where they all dress up as Hyde, the ghost of Hyde.
Yeah.
And then by doing that, they trap the person doing all these things, and then unmasking occurs. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess we don't have to go into too much detail here. I did like that. Well, first of all, I was like, is it a goblin stealing jewelry? Because it's green.
It's all green, yeah.
The policeman blows his whistle, and he's like, the ghost of Hyde! So this is someone the police
have seen before?
Have seen and have a name for? I did like that, kind of like the first episode, we have a little bit of the gang not doing mysteries.
Right.
And a very teenage, like,
yeah,
50s,
they're hanging
60s
out,
thing
having
to
ice
hang out.
cream and milkshakes.
Yeah. And Scooby steals all Shaggy's ice cream.
Yeah, it's a magic trick.
It's a magic trick that our dog has also tried. Yeah. She has allergies.
Although, Shaggy's the only one whose milkshake has a pickle on top.
Right.
Even Scooby's has a cherry.
Except, and Shaggy's like, pickles and ice cream, because he's supposed to be a pothead, like he'll eat anything.
He never says that, Megan.
But I will also say this. It's not a pickle on top of his ice cream. It's a jalapeno.
It looks
pepper.
like a jalapeno, or it could be like one of those gherkins, like the little pickles.
No, it had a stem like a jalapeno. I'm gonna die on this hill.
Okay.
No. Yeah, so maybe it was a gherkin. That's a good point. But then we come to so I liked the gag at the back of the van. I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah, that Mr. Hyde hid under the blanket.
We have a lot of clues here. So the first is that there's mud on the shoes that they find.
Mm-hmm.
Then they find old costumes.
Yep.
Then they find a newspaper clipping of Helga, the German maid. And she had a circus act.
She was an acrobat.
She was an acrobat.
And she did a fly show where she could, like, walk on walls.
Right. Then we have ironing with shoes, a feather duster, and knockout drugs.
And phosphorus paint.
Because
Mr. Hyde's ghost.
Yes, I have that too. Phosphorus paint under the bed. But it was the knockout drugs that really gave me pause.
Yeah.
Like this guy just has Quaaludes or roofies or whatever.
And he said, well, Dr. Jekyll had said, I was trying to remake the initial thing that my great ancestor had, but I drank it and then I lost consciousness.
Right.
And then I woke up and I had these jewels or whatever.
Yeah, supposedly, yes. While they're running through the house doing chasing, Scooby finds a mouse hole, and a mouse comes out and is like, beep, 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 beep.
Yeah, it chews Scooby out a little bit for knocking on his door.
That I did think was kind of funny. Helga cleans the attic. She goes, I've just cleaned in here. And they're like, what? And they go, oh, and they sneeze and there's dust everywhere.
Yes.
So she's not really
and Shaggy's
doing her
like,
job.
what did it look like before she started cleaning?
Yeah. And then classic again, we have a classic bit. Hyde is hiding behind a bookcase. And then they go room to room, kind of Benny Hill style.
Yes.
He ties Shaggy up and he threatens to turn Shaggy into a frog. I don't know how that would happen. They also have this bit where Shaggy and Scooby are hiding in the TV.
Yeah, and every time Hyde changes the channel, they switch costumes and do a different bit. Yeah. That was pretty ingenious, actually.
And while all this is going on, this is my favorite part of this episode, is that there is what I wrote. This is a very boppy, Archie sounding song. And it's called Recipe for Love. But it doesn't fit. Well, because Hyde is like making potions.
Right.
But it has nothing. The song's like, I've got a recipe for love. And I love you. And it's a good. Like.
It's just a campy chase song.
No, it's not a chase song at all. It's just a song that they probably were going to put on the Archies and didn't have room for because it doesn't fit at all here. At all. And it just made me laugh so hard. They trap the ghost of Hyde by dressing up as Hyde.
Yeah, they all dress up as a Hyde, and then the ghost is like, "What? Well, I know I'm not the real one. Then maybe there is a real one."
Yeah,
and, yeah.
But before they do that, they say he's a 24-karat phony. I don't know what that means. I guess because
the real deal, because 24-karat gold is like what you wanted.
But he's a phony, and I guess because also there was a jewelry robbery at the beginning. These are 24. That's what they say. These are 24-karat gold bracelets, and he's a 24-karat phony.
Yeah.
But I don't. Anyway, they trap him in a mattress.
So yeah, they roll Hyde up in a mattress, and that's when they're able to unmask Hyde. And of course, we're going through all of the clues in this. And I went, well, I already figured this out. It's Helga the maid.
No.
They pull the mask off, and it's not Helga the maid.
Yeah.
I fell for the red herrings.
They even said, as an adult, you fell for the red herring. They even said, and if we're right, if our clues were right, it should be Helga the maid. And as they pull it off, they go, oh, Dr. Jekyll!
Dr. Jekyll left those clues on purpose.
Yeah. He framed his own
I should have
maid.
known, because you said there's a lot more clues here.
Yeah.
It's what we call an orgy of evidence.
That's
there
not
was
what
too
we call
much
it.
evidence. It was left on purpose.
Yes, there was too much evidence left on purpose. But my favorite, besides the song, my other favorite thing is that they go, yeah, I knew it wasn't Helga because of these suction cups that I forgot to mention. They found suction cups.
Oh yeah, Shaggy did.
And Scooby uses them to go up the wall. And Shaggy goes, if it had been Helga, she wouldn't have needed the suction cups because she could just walk right up walls. Like, I think...
Because she's an acrobat.
I know, but she's still... Well, you should know he's a gymnast.
He's a gymnast.
He's his most swingingest gymnast. Are you
challenging his specialty?
I'm not. I guess I shouldn't. So that ended our second episode. And that brings us to a close. We watched one from season 1 and one from season 2.
Yes.
So what did the critics have to say?
So the critics, this actually, Scooby-Doo Where Are You, the original one that we're looking at, actually was really well received. It was a huge hit for Hanna-Barbera and for CBS. It actually led Hanna-Barbera to create more series. For CBS, ABC, and NBC. So some of those were Josie and the Pussycats.
Right.
The Pebbles and Bam Bam show.
Oh.
The Pebbles, Dino, and Bam Bam segments.
Right.
Which were on the Flintstones comedy show. The Funky Phantom, Speed Buggy, The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan.
I don't remember half of these.
Inch High Private Eye. Goober and the Ghost Chasers? I don't recall that one. I remember Inch High Private Eye.
Did they rip off their own show with Goober and the Ghost Chasers?
Captain Caveman
and
the Teen Angels. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kids.
Oh.
And the New Shmoo, which I don't remember the New Shmoo at all.
So they got a lot more cartoons that were not violent. Like, that were non-violent.
Scooby-Doo Where Are You was ranked the 24th greatest cartoon on IGN's top 100 animated series. In Britain, in the UK, it was also really well received. It was voted the 8th greatest kids TV show.
Really?
In the UK, yeah. Which is pretty neat.
Yeah, I don't like this show. So I find it interesting that it's in the top 100. Like,
it's an icon.
Yeah, but it's not...
Who doesn't know Scooby-Doo?
Right, but I don't get it, I guess. I liked it better here than I remembered as a kid. I really thought I was going to be at like a 1 or a 2.
Maybe it's too highbrow for you. Maybe it's a little over your head.
It's not highbrow. It's just that there's something like... Okay, I guess I figured out part of it is the formula, right? Mm. Part of it is that there are tics here that are very similar to a lot of bad sitcoms from the 60s, 70s, early 80s. That the laugh track when there are no laughs, the long hilarity chase scenes of hijinks and whatever. I thought it was interesting with the clues that they did kind of add up. That was kind of neat, especially in the later episode. I'm sure they have kind of more of those, like the second one we saw. But this isn't like, to me, some of the better ones that we have seen, like Alvin and the Chipmunks I liked, Muppet Babies, like things that are more imaginative, I guess.
Okay.
I know it should be imaginative because there's monsters and things.
Out of Scooby Snacks.
I give it, I don't know. I was falling asleep too. At a certain point, because and Steve was like, Meg, are you falling asleep? Like a 3 I'm like at a 3 or a 4, I think. I'm gonna have to, you make your case and maybe you'll pump me up to
Well, I feel like I feel like this makes its case for me. I feel like I should not have to defend Scooby-Doo to a red-blooded American. But I will say, okay, this has a great group of kids.
Okay.
All right. Healthy American teens.
They do all have distinctive personalities.
They're distinctive. You have Fred, you have Velma, Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby-Doo, who's awesome, right? They all, as we mentioned before, they kind of have their distinct personalities, but they also have their own roles. Mm-hmm. And they all mesh well together. They have an awesome mystery van. The Mystery Machine.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Distinctive. Kind of like the A-Team later on.
Yeah, it does look a lot like the A-Team. You see the
Mystery Machine and you know it's Scooby-Doo in the gang. And you know, they had a gimmick, yeah, but they stuck to it. They solved mysteries. Megan, how many mysteries in the United States would have gone unsolved in the 60s, 70s, and 80s had it not been for these meddling kids?
It's just...
I feel like that's an easy pitch.
Oh, by the way, there's a great book called These Meddling Kids, and it's like a book for adults, but it's kind of, it's a group of adults who were in like a mystery solving group like this. So it's kind of inspired by Scooby-Doo. That book's okay.
All right. Well, so again,
I
feel like I don't have to really back my decision up. I'm not going to be so crazy as to say this is a 10. Okay, it is not. There are some flaws, right? We've discussed.
Yeah.
But I would say that it deserves. No, not even deserves. All right, it has earned at least 7 Scooby snacks.
That's interesting. That's lower than I thought you would give it. I thought you'd give it maybe an 8.
Well, you don't know everything about me.
All right,
I left some clues, but you didn't pick them up.
I did. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm gonna give it a 4. And again, that's just a personal thing. It's just a personal thing.
Okay.
Like, one of the things is, does it hold up? It's pretty much what I remember. But the other thing is, like, would I have kids watch this? No, I wouldn't, because I don't want it. I don't want this in the background, and I don't want to be forced to watch it with children.
See, I would.
No, I can't deal with it.
Irreconcilable differences,
I guess. All right, so
so together. Five and a half Scooby snacks out of 10.
5.5 for the show, and I forgot what our snack. 2.5.
Yep, 2.5.
2.
No, 2. You
two
give
for
it a 1.
yeah.
I give it a 3.
5.5 for the show. 2 for the snack. Not a super great week, but listen, if you like Scooby-Doo, you like Scooby-Doo.
I just want to put it out there that Megan brought down the score. Just for everyone listening.
Yeah, I did. Sorry about that, but it is what it is. So next time, now that we have Scooby-Doo, Steve, is really our last summer pick.
It really is. It's our transition into school.
Yeah, it is. So after this, we're going to have a bonus episode for Labor Day.
Coming up next, actually.
Yeah, coming up next. And that is...
Office Space.
I lost the coin toss because I wanted Newsies. And Steve was like, I don't want to watch a bunch of 12-year-old boys singing songs.
And Office Space is a quintessential work-related... Like, I think everyone can relate to Office Space in some way or another.
Yeah.
For Labor Day. So, yeah.
I will also say with Office Space that I think is going to be interesting is that the version I remember is like bits of it when you'd catch it on Comedy Central. So, like, edited and all of that. So, like, seeing
So
Office...
you may not have seen the entire thing all...
I don't think I've ever seen...
Wow.
I've seen it all the way through. I have. But I don't think I've seen the unedited version. So, like, the rated R regular, like, version.
Okay.
That happened to me also with Animal House. I had never seen the real Animal House. I didn't realize, like...
Okay, you'd only seen pieces on regular TV. All right.
All right. So that is also what's coming up.
We have Reading Rainbow.
We have Reading Rainbow, and I actually don't have any What is Steve Willing to Watch, because they're... Okay, you can watch newer episodes of Reading Rainbow on Prime, but they have, like, random episodes from different seasons on Amazon Prime. But the issue is that I wanted, like, the original 1980s.
Right. So we'll just randomly grab a few.
We're going to go on YouTube and find a couple, and I'm hoping that we can find ones of books that, like, maybe we watched, liked, enjoyed, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Then after Reading Rainbow, which is, like, back to school themed, we have a couple more back to school themed things. And that is, I have been waiting for this forever. ABC After School Specials. We're going to do ABC after school specials instead of our typical movies. So we're going to watch like 2 or 3 of them. They're only about 45 minutes, like a show.
Okay.
But we're going to watch 2 or 3, kind of depending on how much time we have. And then after that, our cartoon for back to school is Magic School Bus. So that's what's coming up. Reading Rainbow, after school specials, which should be amazing. And then, Magic School Bus. And yeah, so those are our September picks. And, until then, my name is Megan.
And I'm Steve.
Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for listening.